Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave, this fella here, and this is Dave's booty. Today I have 17 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. How a tiny ninja took over my car. Case file number 2768, written by Mystic Wright. What if the ninja you lost was still watching you? I was with some friends for a drunken college night at one of those places with go-karts, batting cages, mini-golf, skating rink, arcade, etc. At the beginning of the night, I used a spare quarter in one of those coin-operated machines to see what kind of little toy I would get in those plastic egg containers. It was a little blue ninja, and I carried him around all night. We were playing mini-golf, and I was pretending the ninja was fighting one of my friends. I dropped him during one of his ninja flips, and he disappeared as soon as he hit the ground. Lost, but I don't care, it was only a quarter. A couple hours later, we headed back to my car to go home. I got into the driver's seat, and before anyone else got into the car, I picked up my half-full drink sitting in the cup holder and took a sip. As I'm putting my drink back down, there he is, stealthily sitting in my cup holder, waiting to attack. No clue how he got there. And so he hasn't left my car since, and is currently sitting in my rearview mirror, watching over everyone. Yeah, this is a fun little play on expectations, right? Is the ninja actually alive, a little toy? Probably not. But what if a guardian angel was involved? Who knows? Maybe it's a symbolic representation of your guardian angel, so keep it around. Case file number 2769, written by Banana Pancakes 24, The Skydiver, The News, and The Kid on the Carpet. The afternoon sun streamed into the living room, highlighting dust motes dancing in the air. I, just 8 years old, sat cross-legged on the faded Persian rug, focused on building a tower of worn wooden blocks. My parents were absorbed in the evening news, the TV's low hum a familiar soundtrack to my solitary play. Suddenly, a strange, clear thought popped into my head. Someone died skydiving today, I announced, my voice cutting through the quiet room. My parents paused, turning from the screen to look at me. My mom, always patient, simply asked, "Oh, honey, where did you hear that?" My dad, however, his brow furrowed, echoed, "Yeah, where do you hear that, son? We haven't heard anything about that." I shrugged, genuinely puzzled. "I just know it," I insisted, feeling strangely certain. Their gazes lingered on me, a curious mix of amusement and something else, a hint of unease maybe. Minutes later, the news anchor's voice pierced the air, sharp and somber. "And in local news tonight, a tragic skydiving accident." My parents exchanged a look, their faces draining of color. They turned back to me, eyes wide, a silent question hanging in the air. The blocks in my hand suddenly felt heavy, and the room, once so familiar, seemed to buzz with an unspoken tension. From that day on, a subtle shift occurred. Their eyes, whenever they looked at me, held a new depth, a mix of love and an almost imperceptible hint of suspicion. Well, first I just want to say you write really well, so props to you for that. It's a joy to narrate stories that are written so well. Kind of makes me want to read a book, a public domain book or something, but maybe one day. But yeah, having future knowledge, in this case, very quick future knowledge, just a few minutes ahead, still inexplicable to me, but it's within that realm of, okay, yeah, I could see this being possible. Your subconscious playing through things so quickly, but it does involve additional information you couldn't have possibly calculated yourself. It's not just seeing something in the corner of your eye and not really processing it, but your subconscious does, so it makes you paranoid or something. That's useful all the time to deal with threats in the wild. It's what we evolved for. But something else is going on, something a layer above that. I can't really define it, but I know it's there. Case file number 2770, written by Doggleberries. From Korea, with love. I came to the USA from Korea when I was about 11 or 12, and I didn't have any friends because of the language barrier. I had always loved dogs and begged my mom to get me one, and one day she took me and my sister to someone's house and got me a puppy. I named him Sammy. I at first wanted to name him Bingo like the song, but I think I thought it would be too embarrassing to call out that name in public. He really was my only and best friend back then. I remember one time during the time he was being potty trained, he decided to relieve himself in the middle of the carpet. I, instinctively, dived across the room with my arm stretched out and caught the waist before it reached the carpet. About 5 years later, we had to move to another state and into an apartment because of financial issues, and my parents found a farm to send Sammy off to. It was truly one of the saddest days of my life, and I kept the last doggy biscuit that was left as a reminder and kept it on top of the TV. I woke up and the biscuit was broken into half, and I asked the family, but nobody knew anything about it. Later that day, my stepdad got a call from the guy he gave Sammy to, saying that he ate rat poison or something and died. The only regret that I have is that I was totally new to having a pet, and my family didn't know crap either, so there were times when I mistreated him while thinking that I was doing the right thing. I'll not go into details, however, because it makes me cringe thinking about what a silly little ignorant bastard I was back then. That's all I can say. Case file number 2771, written by Anonymous. The snow stopped at my door. Back in January 2012, I came from a job interview to learn that my friend died. Mom had been chatting with his ex, A, on Facebook, and told me. That's when things got weird. He loved snow, and it had started snowing that day. The following week was his viewing. That night, my boyfriend stayed over because my mom was giving us a ride. Boyfriend was asleep, so he didn't notice that I had woken up from a terrifying nightmare at about 5 a.m. Our friend G had appeared in the room in my dream and was staring at me. He started laughing, then jumped up and disappeared into my ceiling. I was about to go back to sleep when A called. I answered because she needed me, and I'd have felt like a jerk for not being there. We talked for a bit, and she was feeling guilty about all the drama in her and G's relationship. She broke up with G the week before his death. I was telling her about how he probably still cared a lot about her despite some of the things he did. When I mentioned what he did, I felt this cold going all the way up and down my back. Freaked the fluck out because the window by the head of the bed where I was closed, so it couldn't have been a draft or anything. At the viewing was when I found out that G loved snow, and that day all the snow began to melt. When I got home, the only snow left was in front of my door. G's favorite color happened to be blue, so you could imagine how shocked I was to find a blue photo album while doing a temp shift at a store the next day. The words on the album cover, "No regrets." I took it as a sign that G was okay wherever he is, which helped me to cope with some of the guilt and fear I had surrounding his death. Case file number 2772, written by Fletch20, The Barkless Ghost of 2003. This happened in 2003. I was sleeping on the couch in my living room. My family just moved, and I didn't have my bed set up yet. Anyways, it was about 4 in the morning, and I heard panting, like from a dog. I thought I was just dreaming of the sound, because we didn't have a dog at the time. I tried to ignore the sound and go back to sleep, but it wouldn't stop. I listened to the sound and tried to figure out if it was a heater or something, but then I heard whatever it was walking across the floor to right behind the couch where I was sleeping. I distinctly heard the clicking of nails on the hardwood floor, and the panting grew louder. I lifted up my head, and the sound stopped. I have no idea what it was, or what it could have been, but the story doesn't stop there. A couple of days passed, and I was woken up by my mom in the middle of the night. She came down into the living room because she said that she heard what sounded like a dog get up and walk from beside her bed all the way out into the living room where I was sleeping. I mean, that is the question, right? What level of entity has a spark of life in them? Sentience of a soul. I think for sentience, self-awareness, you need a soul. Now, what is a soul? Is it created by God, a simulation, a higher level, like the part of us that is connected to the program? I don't know. Can't really go there. But I do think you need that extra layer to define and create self-awareness. Because if not, we're just part of the universe. which is a complicated series of dominoes falling down. Now yeah, at the quantum level everything's unpredictable, but at the holistic level we live in, it's mostly predictable. So that always bugged me about free will. You can't have free will in this environment unless there's a layer above it. Now how does free will exist in that higher level? I don't know, but I think we do need to have that. So okay, we have a soul, presumably. Do all pets have a soul? What about insects? Do ants have a soul? Are they self-aware? Where is the line? It's kind of blurry, right? Do cows have a soul? Dolphins? Is it just based on intellect? Like you have to have a certain level of intellect in your brain to be able to connect to a higher level soul? I don't know. Interesting. Though if it is a simulation, presumably you could connect to just about anything that is alive. What if some trees are sentient? Someone in the real world just wanted to exist as a tree. I wouldn't. Case file number 2773, written by Misanthrope. The Smile That Crossed Time. I was staying at my aunt's house when I was 12 or so, having a sleepover with one of my cousins. It was probably 2 or 3 in the morning, and I woke up feeling like someone was watching me. I looked toward the door, and I saw a boy of about 5 standing there looking at me. He had brown, curly hair, blue eyes, chubby cheeks, a birthmark on his left cheek, and he was dressed for winter in a red and blue coat, even though it was July. He smiled and waved at me, then turned around and walked through the door. I told my aunt about it the next morning, and when I described him, she got this terrified look on her face and went to get a picture of a boy who looked exactly like I had described. He was my cousin, who had died on Christmas Day, 1982. The picture was taken that day, after having suited up to go try out his new sled. They were getting ready to cross the highway when he broke away and ran across the street. He was hit by a truck that couldn't stop in time. I was only 1.5 years old, so I had no memory of him, and I lived hundreds of miles away, so I wasn't there that day. Just a sad story. The fate of people dying before their time, way before their time. And the echo, the imprint of who they are lingers behind. And because of quantum immortality, simulation theory, when something bad happens to someone or they die, it is a bit more muted because I truly do believe that they still live on in a different universe. And even if all the copies are gone, they probably just wake up from the pod in the real world and try a different game. But that's still just a hypothesis, and we have to deal with reality as we can experience it now, so it is still sad, even if there's probably more going on. Case file number 2774, written by Darina, Lost and Laundered. One time, I'd lost my DS in my house and could not find it anywhere. I asked my mom on several occasions if she had seen it, because I thought she had picked it up and stored it away somewhere, but she said she hadn't seen it. A week passed and still couldn't find the console. I wasn't too concerned though, because I knew the last place I had it was in the house, and there's no way it could have been stolen or elsewhere. I figured it would turn up. About 2 weeks pass, and I kind of forget about the DS because I get loaded down with school and work and don't have a lot of time for video games. I come home from class one afternoon, and my mom tells me she put a laundry basket in my room with laundry. I had to put it away. I go up to my room and start putting the clothes in their rightful place, when stuck between the clothes is my DS. I get excited and call down to my mom. "Oh, you found my DS, where was it?" Because I was genuinely curious where I had left it for 2 weeks. She calls back up to me. "What? I didn't find it?" I was confused. "So you didn't put it in my laundry basket with my clothes for me?" "No, I didn't." I have no explanation as to how my DS had turned up in a basket full of freshly laundered clothes, considering I use that basket all the time for my clothes and never saw it there the past 2 weeks. Other laundry had been in it. Also, my mom doesn't pull pranks or act stupid to get a laugh, as it's not in her nature. It was just really odd. Always have to have one classic DOP event in these videos, right? I wouldn't say it's a mandatory thing, but it's kind of funny. It's hard to go without at least one. Case file number 2775, written by Briu 1337. The Final Buzz. Nerd Glory Achieved. I'm quite the nerd, so naturally I did a quiz bowl in high school and at the community college I went to. The community college was notoriously not that great at quiz bowl and hadn't advanced to the state finals in quite some years. So in my freshman year, we had a pretty solid team, but seeing that the defending state champs were in our division, we really had our work cut out for us. Fast forward to the final meet of the regular season, and we beat the defending champs and another team to put us in a tie with the champs, to see who would represent our division in the state tournament. With about 15 seconds left in the tiebreaker game, the moderator starts reading the last question. The thing is that on the previous question, I buzzed in early and got -5 points for giving an incorrect answer, which put us down by 5 points, meaning that the last question is do or die. If we lose, it's my fault. It's a physics question where you're supposed to manipulate the equation d equals half at 2 to solve for a. About halfway through the question, I know it's time, so with only part of the information given, none of which was enough to finish the calculation, I buzz in and blurt out 300 meters per second squared as time expires, which was the correct answer. The defending champions were pissed. The coach complained, but the moderator contended that I had gotten the answer right and had buzzed in before the time had expired. So we got the win, and eventually went on to finish second at state that year. There simply was no way for my brain to have calculated that answer. Again, hearkening back to that subconscious, the higher level, you can have crystallized information imparted into your brain, where it's just knowledge, right? And then fluid intelligence can be boosted by the subconscious too. What is doing that? Is it a guardian angel just giving you an advantage because you need to win the tournament or go on to the state championship? I don't know. Something is interacting with your subconscious in these instances where people are just suddenly geniuses, but only for a small amount of time. Case file number 2776, written by Autumn Theory. Chicken, pork, and existential dread. My dad and I were in the truck on the northeast extension of the Pennsylvania Turnpike once, coming up to the Lehigh Tunnel, which is probably about 1/8 to 1/4 of a mile in length. Traffic has slowed down prior to the tunnel, leaving us stuck to crawl through the tunnel at a few miles an hour. We just assumed there was something past the tunnel, causing the holdup. However, halfway through the tunnel, traffic turns into one lane, but awkwardly, not as a well-defined passing situation. As we reach the choke point, we finally see what's causing the backup. In the middle of the tunnel, oriented in the wrong direction, is a Honda Civic covered and surrounded by raw meat, as in large chunks of what must have been pig and chicken parts. Definitely not beef, no red meat. The driver seemed fine, and was just staring down at his lap, making no attempt to get his car out of the way, or clean the bits off of it. There was no meat truck stopped, and the whole scene was very centralized, not drawn out like meat had slowly fallen out from another vehicle. To this day, we have no idea what actually happened, and Bill Murray might as well have been there because nobody ever fucking believes me. But it happened. I'd have nothing for this story to add really besides weird and kind of a paradise for meat lovers, right? Well, not really. I guess you wouldn't eat this. It would still be roadkill, right? Case file number 2777, written by Independent. Etched overnight. Unexplained scars. Each appeared overnight. The cause of the scars is completely unknown to me. When I was 13, I woke up with what were apparently 3 large, already healed wounds across my back. They looked like lash marks from a whip, but they didn't hurt. When I was 19, a circular wound about the size of a quarter appeared just off center of my spine overnight. They didn't hurt. At 30, a tear in my skin was about 5 inches long in my inner thigh. It hurts every day. I've been to dermatologists to get an idea of what was going on, and all they can tell me is that it's just normal scar tissue. The last one, the tear, is much more like a classic stretch mark that children and pregnant women get. The first 2 sets of scars are raised like welts. The scar tissue was raised up above the normal skin, though had receded in the past decades or so, leaving behind only slight discoloration, consistent with a wound. Okay, aliens? Dare I say? I wouldn't want to look into those scars if there's anything implanted. Ugh. Case file number 2778, written by Noises. Why we don't do bunk beds anymore. We had recently moved into our house, and my brother and I were sharing a room, even had bunk beds. It was a basement room, and lacking carpet made it perfect for "it's your guy's duty to deal with the puppy at night." One night, shortly after heading to bed, the pup starts to whimper a little. Thinking nothing really of it, I rolled over and put my hand down to pet him. He whimpers a bit more, and I assume it caught my brother's attention, causing him to look over too. Why the dog started whimpering became rather clear. There was a large blue person standing in our room. It was kind of see-through, but lit. It gave the impression that it was taller and larger than it was. It shouldn't have been able to stand in our room, yet it clearly was. The proportions were a bit off too. The hands were down to his knees, and the shins seemed longer too. I remember watching it and getting the feeling it was looking at me. It turned around and walked away. It seemed to take forever and in slow motion. It walked through the open door, across the hall, and stopped for a second before it continued walking right out of the basement wall. Once it was gone, I asked my brother if he saw something. He said that he had, and before he could start talking about it, I told him to go tell his story to our parents before I did. I wanted to know that I hadn't given him any details or altered his view. Naturally, our parents both thought we made it up before we talked to them. Still, the fact remains that we both saw the same blue person thing walk out of our room and through a basement wall. Every once in a while, my dad will teasingly bring it up. Either way, we both know what we saw. Case file number 2778, written by Beantown Regular. Maple trees, broken brakes, and a miracle. During my junior year in high school, I did a semester away program where I lived on a farm in rural Vermont. For our science class, we each had to pick a random spot somewhere on the school's 150-acre campus and visit it periodically over the course of the 4 months to research soil types, tree growths, etc. It was basically on us to go out to our sites whenever we had time. Within the 150 acres are probably 80 to 100 different logging trails, which is how you get around in the forest. The day runs in a weird way where it's possible for your schedule to give you a few hours free at a time. Anyway, a good friend, we'll call him Tim, had borrowed another friend's bike to go to his site for a couple hours. A site which was pretty deep into the woods. He left about an hour before lunch, and no one would have noticed he was missing for a few hours, had he not come back. During lunch, I was sitting at a table with one of my teachers who, about halfway through lunch, abruptly stood up. We are family style, so this was weird, and told us he was going for a drive. When we asked him why, he seemed kind of agitated and told us that he just felt like he needed to get out for a bit. He hopped in his pickup truck and left down a random logging road. He found Tim in a ditch 2 miles into the forest on that one same logging trail. He'd been going fast down a hill and the brakes had shot out, propelling him into a tree. He'd broken his spine and couldn't move. He was medevaced to Dartmouth for emergency surgery and ended up paralyzed from the waist down. He probably would have been alright, but he tried to drag himself out of the woods and into a more visible position, badly damaging his spinal cord. He said that he was going to keep trying to drag himself towards the school. If our teacher hadn't had a fucking bizarre impulse to drive slowly down one in a giant network of logging trails in backwoods Vermont in the middle of the day, he most likely would have quickly, at least, become paralyzed from the neck down. The fact that he had such a terrible feeling and made such a seemingly arbitrary decision has always just struck me as inexplicable. Yeah, what else can you say besides miracle? A guardian angel led your teacher, infuse that panic inside them where they don't have a clue what's going on. It's almost like in Harry Potter when he takes Felix Felicis, the luck potion. It's like the guardian angel programs into them exactly the knowledge they need to have luck, I guess, to find this kid that would have been paralyzed or even maybe died if no one had reached him in time. So it wasn't fully perfect, obviously. Didn't get there enough for full recovery was possible, but still. Sometimes you just have to wonder. Case file number 2780, written by Sexy Kitty. The Purple Lighter and the Promise Kept. My best friend passed away almost 6 years ago. A few weeks before she passed, we were hanging out at her place, smoking and watching movies. I was using a mini purple Bic lighter, purple being my favorite color, as well as hers. She took my lighter, and when I asked for it back, she said I could have it when she was done with it. Every time I saw her after that, I'd ask her if she was done with it, and she would still refuse to give it back. She was from Illinois, and we were living in Florida. When she died, some mutual friends, my 2.5-year-old son and I, drove up to her hometown for the funeral, and we spent almost 2 weeks up there, visiting with her family, going to all her favorite places around town, saying our goodbyes. The day before we were leaving to come back home, I wanted to go back to the cemetery one more time, since I knew it would be a while before I was able to come back. I had my son with me. We parked the stroller. I sat there and talked to her while my son ran around playing. I spent maybe an hour just sitting there, talking. It was time to go, so I put my son back in the stroller, and I went to stick the diaper bag back in the storage compartment underneath. Something purple caught my eye. I reached in to see what it was, and my breath caught in my chest as I pulled back my hand and was holding my purple lighter. It was most definitely not there upon my arrival to the cemetery, yet here it was, laying in my hand. I started crying all over again. She had always said I could have it back when she was done with it, and apparently was true to her word. Case file number 2781, written by Crazy Kiz. The bark, the whimper, the silence. I was 15. My family and I live near a canyon, so noises outside at night are pretty normal. One night, my entire family went out and I was home alone. I'm on the computer just watching YouTube when my dog starts barking loudly for no apparent reason. Slightly annoyed, I walk into the other room to let my dog out into the backyard, when she just stops barking and starts whimpering like she's scared. Kinda freaked out now. I slowly open the door, and the blinds in front of our backyard window are wide open. Closed them, and decided to let my dog outside, thinking she still just wanted to go out or something. I leave for a minute or two, and she starts barking crazily again. I think there's someone outside, so I go into the other room and tell my dog to get inside. She runs to the door, but then just stops at the edge of the room and stares at me. I try to grab her and get her inside, because I was freaking out, but she backs away from the house and runs away. I was seriously freaking out now, since I thought someone was in the room with me. The pantry was right behind me, and the door opened a crack. It was closed before. I grab a broom and look inside, hoping to surprise whatever was inside with the wooden end of the broom. But there was nothing inside. So I grabbed my dog from outside, ran upstairs to my room, and called my parents. The creepiest part was when I was asking how long it would be until they got home, and the phone lost connection, and I could hear nothing at all for a minute. I was unable to call them back, and sat for an hour staring at my door with the broom in hand until my parents came home. Still have no idea if there was anything outside that night. Case file number 2782, written by Raptor Captor. The sound beneath the quiet. I was around 9 years old. I had been staying with my best friend at her house. She lived with her grandma, by the way. Now first off, just let me point out that there was something up with this house. I always had a strange feeling in this house. I've never had any other house give me this feeling. Years later, I asked another friend of ours about the house and she immediately agreed on something weird going on with it. Anyways, so I'm staying there for a few days while my parents are out of town, and when it came time for us to go to bed, we chose to sleep out on the couches. That first night, I got no sleep. I just sat there. I don't know if it was homesickness or what, but I didn't sleep. As the clock ticked on, I was still awake. I don't know when it began, but at some point, I began to hear this strange sound. I listened to it for a few minutes and it clicked in my head as to what it sounded like. Someone or something crawling across the carpet. I think I even got up and crawled to verify it was the same sound. It was. I was frozen with fear. It was coming from the small amount of space between us on the couches and the door to her grandmother's room. I just sat there and listened all night. The next night, I was too scared to let it go. I told her grandmother and she had called my mom and they came to the conclusion that I was homesick and sleeping on the uncomfortable couch made it worse, so I should sleep in a bed that night. so I slept in my grandmother's bed. This did nothing. I remember hearing the sound again. It was out in the hallway in that same place. I think at one point I gathered the courage to check it out, but found no source. To this day I have no clue what it was. They don't live in that house anymore, but I still live nearby. I fear it just as much as when I was a little girl. It still gives me that creepy feeling when I see it. Case file number 2783, written by It's DP, The Bucket, The Lady, and My Brother's Denial. My parents go out for their anniversary and whatnot, and so I'm invited to go to my brother's place. My brother and his wife take me to a local CC's and have some news to break to me. They explain that recently there have been strange happenings at their brand new house. Apparently, the people my brother bought the house from were pretty weird. Weird as in the wife of the previous owner keeps a gallon jar of her toenails. Needless to say, my brother was pretty suspicious about that. Fast forward a few months, after my brother and his wife had moved in. Now my brother is a big guy, 6'1", muscular, 20-something, and a newly professional firefighter. The first happening was my brother randomly shooting up out of bed and screaming bloody murder for about 30 seconds and lying back down. Obviously, his wife was extremely worried, and my brother claimed to not remember anything happening. The next week, his wife wakes up and sees a lady standing near the window in her room, looking out of it. As she sits up, she says, "Hello?" and is given no response. The lady looks at her and stares. Then his wife obviously just slowly gets up, and the lady walks out, and the wife loses sight of her. Now here I am in Cece's, already deathly afraid and young. I was really weenish, like 13 years old. We arrive at my brother's place, chill, and then go to bed. I'm creeped out. I stay up, watch the Olympics, and watch Michael Phelps. It's 3 a.m. My brother commands me to go upstairs, so I go. I lay down and begin to fall asleep. Then I hear footsteps up the stairs. My door is right next to the stairs. I think it's their dog, but it's not. My door starts to shake, and the doorknob starts to turn. I call out my brother's name. Nothing. I hear footsteps, and my brother's battock crack. Silence. I'm panicking inside. I called my parents. I tell them I'm scared to death. Silence. Suddenly, the sound of a bucket being kicked violently against the wall. I think, surely they're awake. No, they aren't. And now the bathroom door on my side starts to shake violently too. The bathroom is connected between the two bedrooms. More footsteps. I call my parents again. It's almost 5 a.m., hysterically crying. I sit up, sweaty, high alert, for another hour, while still hearing noises. I stop hearing things as soon as the sun rises, sometime around 6 a.m. I wake up to my brother jumping on top of me and growling. I asked my mom about the thing my brother did to me on your anniversary a couple months ago. No idea what I'm talking about. Then a few years later, I explained to my brother what happened, and he was completely honest, saying he didn't do a thing. He seemed concerned as well. I still ask him and he denies it, and I knew he was in his room the whole night as I watched him walk into his room. Unless he teleported downstairs without making a sound, I have some strange experience with the ghost of my brother? So, my parents built their house in Utah when I was 16. Its construction phase left a lot of bad memories with me. My dad used my sister and I as unpaid heavy labor. And this house is a huge, monstrous behemoth, which has put my parents in debt for the rest of their lives. So I don't care for it. It never felt like home. Then, my first semester of college, I came back for Christmas break. My room fell off. I couldn't put my finger on it. Everything was exactly as I left it. No one had been in it at all. But I had a hard time sleeping. About a week into my visit home, it was like 2 a.m., and I groggily woke up from an uneasy dream. As I came to, and was in the process of trying to figure out what had woken me, I heard a huge crash coming from the middle of the room. I flipped my crap. I'm in a loft bed, close to the ceiling, and my dad installed a wall-mounted sconce next to the bed so that I could have some light up there. After gathering my courage, I turn on the sconce and peek over the edge of the bed. There, lying in the middle of the floor, was a binder. The binder had formerly been resting on a bookshelf halfway across the room. No cats in my room, the ceiling fan was off, so there were no drafts. The binder hadn't been precariously balanced. It had been firmly on the shelf. I have no idea what happened. The second experience is more interesting. I was staying with a friend in Wyoming for a few days during Christmas break. He lived in a house that was affectionately called the Church House, because it was right across the street from a Unitarian Universalist church, and owned by them too. Anyway, for months, the 5 people living there joked about it being haunted, especially the basement of it. I never believed them, but then I stayed over. It was just my friend Jason and I. We went to bed at probably 3 or 4 in the morning. I camped out on his couch, which was just short enough that my legs stuck over it a bit. I thought I heard him get up and move around the kitchen a bit. The kitchen and living room are right next to each other. Then I hear someone moving toward the doorway connecting the kitchen and living room. I get the prickly sensation of someone watching me from the doorway for several minutes. Then I had the distinct impression that someone joined me in the room. And then I felt a searing, white-hot sensation on my calf, in the exact shape of someone's hand. I was immediately forced to sleep. I woke up the next day and my calf still burned in the exact same place. It burned for about 3 weeks. I asked Jason if he had gotten up for water in the middle of the night, and he said no. He'd stayed in bed all night. But I heard footsteps in the kitchen, complete with the sound of pajama pants dragging on the tile. Now time for the jokes of the day. My husband and I just had our 20th year anniversary. Now he's telling everyone that he has a 20-year-old wife. Well, he's not technically wrong. My wife found out I was cheating on her after she found all the letters I was hiding. She got mad and said she's never playing Scrabble with me again. I went out for a Chinese meal last night and chatted with the old waiter. He told me he lived in Japan during the war and had been a kamikaze pilot. His code name? Chow Mein. I said, "Wait, didn't kamikaze pilots sacrifice their lives?" He smiled and said, "Yes, but I was chicken Chow Mein." Why is Chuck Norris so bad at math? He knows no equal. I like that one. Good old Chuck Norris jokes never get old. Imagine being Chuck Norris, so iconic that literally everyone believes you're a god, pretty much. What a legend. My wife hid my prosthetics, and now I can't find them. I have to admit, I'm stumped. Alright. Want more videos? A compilation up here, click that. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. See you next time.